I hope you caught the last video that we did, which is about the foundational co-creating the values and agreements to function as a staff. But if you didn't, you can listen to this one and then go back and check out kind of that base building. You'll see how they build. This video is going to be talking about how we use circle protocol with our staff to not only teach them how to do that with students, but also how to create the container for really important critical conversations that we're kind of working our way up to. So as a staff, we need to be able to have those to practice those facilitation and discussion muscles so that we can build them up to be able to be fluent with students when we talk about critical things in the classroom, with parents, with coworkers. The skills are relevant as human beings. So in this one, we're going to go into the slide deck and the agenda and all the resources that you're going to need to facilitate a 60-minute or less conversation via circles with your staff. Here we go. You can feel free to make a copy of this. You can also make a copy of the survey so you can get that feedback for yourself. You'll see opening, closing, and then anytime there's a circle, it's literally just one activity. It's the circle, and that's going to be as long as you have. There are key questions here, and as always, there's a slide deck here. We're going to jump into that in one moment, but I also want to name that there's a circle planning template. So when you have other staff members who want to facilitate their own stuff with coworkers, with community, with family members, with students, they can just grab it and go. In fact, I actually designed this for my students to lead circles in my classroom, so students can also use this as well, which is great. Let me go ahead and click into the slides so you can kind of get the flow. Building community with circles. So again, we're deepening that community as the goal. Circles are the vehicle or the protocol. So today we're actually co-creating that staff community. We're continuing to co-create it. And we're also engaging in a circle protocol, which is helpful from a pedagogical lens and also a staff community lens, a vehicle for that conversation. Where are we? I always like to name that native-land.ca is a wonderful resource to identify that. Community agreements. This is where you're going to replace this slide with whatever you created that we talked about in the last agenda. So in the last agenda or staff workshop, you co-created these community agreements. Use your own here. And I would encourage you not to skip that one and go right to this. It is possible. It's not quite as valuable. Now, we're going to introduce the 5 components of a circle. So a little bit of kind of housekeeping protocol information sharing. And then we're going to dive into the circle itself. So 5 components of a circle. Really critical that there's no desks in front of us. That human connection of just seeing each other, not being able to hide a cell phone under a desk, all the things that you think about with students, think about with staff as well. Try to physically move desks out of the room if you can, or if you need, I should say. Chairs in a circle, there's a talking piece, so only the person with the talking piece talks, right? There's a center piece. There is an opening ceremony, closing ceremony. I understand too with the talking piece, since COVID, this may not make as much sense as it used to. I do really value it. It could literally be a hand sanitizer pump, and you pump a hand sanitizer after touching it and passing it or whatever. It could be a box of wipes, whatever it is, and then you take a wipe and wipe your hands after. It can really feel valuable still to have that talking piece. You could also kind of motion as if you had a talking piece and kind of pretend like you're passing it even though you're holding nothing. But the idea of having a talking piece carries weight. So think about that. Opening ceremony, just to name, like we're starting the circle, and then closing ceremony to end the circle. This is different than our typical discussion, and we need a formal opening and closing to delineate what is just typical staff conversation, staff meeting, what is actually the circle. You would do the same thing with a lesson with students. So thinking about this now, what is the structure of a circle? We have an opening ceremony, as I said, which could include a quote. Students are reading the quote, maybe a couple people respond to the quote popcorn style. Maybe it's a movement. Maybe we're doing some sort of clap, group clap together. I like that often as like a closing ceremony. Maybe it's a stand and stretch. Maybe it's everyone does a movement associated with their name and other people, copy that. It could be a picture that you're looking at and asking a question about. This works really well with like a current event or something you want to get people's emotional response to, where they're naming an emotion of how they're feeling in the moment. Whatever it is, the opening and the closing ceremony are often very similar. As you'll see in the closing ceremony, I sometimes talk about the speed share round, which is like, how do I feel in one word? You can do that as an opening or a closing, or one takeaway that I have really fast, 1 to 2 words, and you kind of limit that space so it doesn't take all day. Now, the activities I typically do are full circle. They're question rounds. The question is posed. Everyone goes around in a circle and has these. Now, depending on how large your staff is or your team is, this may be a long time. I have facilitated circles where there's like 40 people, and that literally might be enough time for just one main question. If it is smaller, ideally you're in like 15 to 20 people. That is great. If you have a large staff, you can break groups up and have circle keepers who are trained in this or comfortable in kind of facilitating. Just facilitate for smaller groups. You can also do, if you have a really large group, you can do some partner or triad work where you have like an inner circle, outer circle, and you kind of like turn and face and you're just kind of sharing your answer to the questions that are posed with whoever you're facing. You can rotate one of those circles so you change partners, whatever makes sense. Triad work is similar. You could do popcorn. I highly recommend doing the other two first, and popcorn is kind of like a filler for like a less important question that not everyone should answer. Circle agreements. These are the ones I typically use and have learned as I was trained. All are invited to speak but may pass is a really important one, and everyone sits, including the circle keeper. Sometimes I really need to say that. It is really a difference maker. My students, when they first started, sometimes would stand because they're so used to teachers standing and facilitating, and I would have to encourage everyone, I always sit when we are in circle as the facilitator. I encourage you to do so as well. Really democratizes the space. Whatever's said in the circle stays in the circle. I have had many students who feel comfortable in the circle, so much so that they share something that I am mandated to report. It involves harmful behavior done to them or others, and it needs to go elsewhere. So I always remind students at the front, this is good practice to get in with staff, naming it as part of your staff agreements. Even though you're not mandated reporters in that sense, you can just say, I would say this to students if you're working with students. All right, so here's the circle. In one word, how do you feel? Story of my name is the main circle. Invite everyone to just share a story of their name. That's the prompt. Now you can give these questions, you can give all these caveats. I would go first just to model what a response could look like, but just say you could share whatever you'd like. And then literally you're just, how did you feel participating in the circle? So same idea, focus on feelings, quick round. At the end, everyone shares or is invited to share, they may pass. That's it. That's literally the circle. And then you could popcorn this or invite people to turn and talk to a partner, but the end is just thinking about next steps. How would you use this in whatever your role is, with students, with staff, with families? There is that resource that I mentioned linked in the agenda. Remind them that it's there, and then invite them to share their feedback. And that's it. Sorry, that one went a little long, but I just want to make sure you feel comfortable with circle facilitation and kind of how a circle works. As you can see, the actual piece of it, like what the circle actually was, requires very little planning. It's thinking about what is that core circle, and then what is a question for the beginning and the end, the opening and the closing in circle language. Super simple to plan, which is why students can do it so well once they've practiced participating in a circle and they get a sense of the kind of agreements of the circle and how to facilitate. It is a really kind of low prep option for teachers and for staff when you're facilitating a staff meeting, right? And it's so valuable to hear all of the voices, to give everyone a chance to speak about these important questions, which is why the selection of the question is so important. Super, super powerful. So let me know how it goes. Make sure you sign up to get all these free resources around the agenda, the slide deck, all the things. Copy them, personalize them. Let me know how it works with you. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out.